Hello, this is Jason with Tomcat Properties, and today's topic is how to screen applicants. All right. So the goal of every landlord and property manager is to get the best tenants. All right. To get the best tenants, the bigger your pool of applicants that you can get, the better chance that you're going to get the very best tenant you can. So you need to think from the word go. When you're looking for a new applicant, you want to think, I want to get as many applications as I can. All right. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the application step. But first, I want to talk about why do we screen applicants? All right. So for us, and let me just go over some general things, right? So we want to ensure the safety for other tenants and neighbors. Now for us, I don't have any multifamily properties. It's just single family homes. But if that's something that you might want to consider, but for us, the big thing is safety of our neighbors as well, right? We believe in being great neighbors to the neighbors around our properties. All right. We want to make sure they're safe and we get great tenants there. All right. Reduce tenant turnover. Just like me, the longer you can have a tenant in place, the more productive in terms of how much money you can make on the property is going to work for you. Tenant turnover is expensive. It's painting, cleaning, all that stuff. You want to reduce tenant turnover if possible, right? And the next one is reduce risk for non-payment. We want to collect our rents on time. So we want to screen applicants to reduce the risk of non-payment. We also want to protect our property from damage, whether that be from pets, smoking, things like that. And you want to comply with fair housing laws if that's applicable to you. We want to be fair. We want to give everyone a shot. So by having a structured screening process, it ensures you apply the same criteria to every applicant that you have. And that will help you avoid issues with discrimination-based claims. And by following consistent screening practices, protects you legally if you ever have to reject a client. You can demonstrate these are my processes, and this is why I rejected the client. All right. So our current process for screening tenants. Okay. So currently, if we have a vacancy, we go into the property, we clean it, we paint it, we do necessary repairs to get it ready. Then we go in, we take video, great pictures of the property inside and out. And then we have a nice write-up detailing the property, whether or not we accept HUD, animals, so on and so forth. Some basic rules so that people understand you're not constantly being hit up by, do you accept HUD? Some very basic things that you can put in the advertisement. All right. Right now we advertise on Facebook Marketplace. Zillow, which is a rising contributor. We're starting to get more and more applicants from there, and apartments.com. What places do you advertise? Locally, our homes are in Boyd County, Kentucky, in or around Ashland. So if you're in that market, if you're a landlord or if you're a landlord or a property manager, where you're advertising, please comment below. Love to hear that feedback. All right, so the first thing we do is responses, and let me show you guys. So let me get over to our, here we go. All right, this is our response. Someone sends me a message. Hey, I'm interested in the property. Is it still available? Thank you for contacting us. Our first step in the screening process is a Google form that asks some simple questions. If you pass the screen, we'll contact you at the date time to view the property. Here's a link for our screening form. Now in the application or in the advertisement, I also have a link to our website. All right, and it tells applicants, here's our qualifications standard, some of our policies. Here's our process, right? And this is what I'm going to talk to you about. So you can go to tomcatproperties.com/applicants, and you can look at this as well. All right. And let me get back to my notes because I've lost track of those. All right. So I send folks this screening document. Thank you for contacting us. They fill out a screening form. So let's talk about the screening form and what exactly it looks like. This is for a screening form for one of our properties. First question I ask, are you going to be honest? Right? I think this invokes them to be honest. And that's why I asked the question. Secondly, ask them, do you smoke? All right. If they smoke, it takes them, or if they do not smoke, it takes them to the next question. If they do smoke, it says, sorry, you don't meet the minimum criteria. Let's go down at the bottom. If you have any questions about this survey, please email our property manager, info@tomcatproperties.com. All right. So yes, I smoke is a disqualifier. Smoking is expensive for our properties. If people move out, you really can't get that smell out, or it'll be, that brown tar all over the flooring and the ceilings and the ceiling fans and the light bulbs and just everywhere. All right, so we do not allow smoking on our property. Minimum gross salary screening, so we require 3 times the salary. So if the rent in this case is $900 a month, you need to make $2,700 a month. Combined household income, so that's household income. All right, so if it's a husband and wife, and she makes $2,000 a month and he makes $1,500 a month, then you do qualify. If you don't, if you select no here, then it boots you to the end where it says you don't qualify. All right, eviction screening. If you've been evicted at all, then you don't qualify. If you've never had an eviction, it takes you to the next question, animal screening. Excuse me. How many animals do you have? We allow 1 or 2. If you have 3 or more, you're disqualified. If you don't have animals, that's fine too. All right, we take you to the occupancy screening. All right, so we ask you, how big are your animals, right? We want an idea about that, and please describe them. Now, there's certain animals that are aggressive that we don't allow. Just as a blanket policy, if you have a German Shepherd, a Doberman Pinscher, a Pit Bull mix, Rottweiler, something like that, we just don't allow it. It's too much of a liability on our properties, and quite frankly, we don't want any of the neighbors or neighborhood kids or anyone getting bit. All right, occupancy screening. For us, we allow 2 people per bedroom. All right, so if it's a 2-bedroom unit, and you're trying to have you and your husband and your 2 kids and your aunt and your uncle and grandma live with you, that's too many people. There's no disqualifier on this question, but we do that manually. Rent payments are paid online. We only accept payments this time through apartments.com. We will not accept cash or check, and that's just for ease of managing the property. There's no disqualifiers here. All right, so if people say no, then we'll talk about that, and maybe there's a way around it if they're a great applicant. All right, lease term, there's no disqualifiers. I'm just trying to get a feel for how long you want to be there. Most, 95% of people say a year, and that's just fine. But I'm trying to get an understanding from the get-go. But if you want to be there for less than a year, that's not something I'm really interested in, and I may take a close look at that because I'm just not interested in renting to anyone for under a year. No short-term, medium terms at this time. All right, tell us why you love the home. I want to know, hey, have you drove by the property? Someone might put something like, it's a fence in the yard, that's great for my kids. It's going to, help keep us safe. I love how the house looks. It's got enough parking. Like, I want to see that people visually paid attention to the property. All right, if they meet it, says you've met the criteria, please fill out the information. It's your name, your email, your phone number. Okay, so pretty simple survey. this screens a lot of folks. Now, I will tell you there's a fair share of dishonest folks out there. I haven't limited people, or it's not easy, I guess, via Google to only have one applicant per. I can set it to have one applicant per email, but then you can always ask your co-applicant to submit the screen and lie because you got kicked out before. But I can see who was disqualified before, but more on that later. When I have a conversation with folks, I can usually discern that pretty quickly, and we'll disqualify them based upon a conversation. All right. So now I've got all my responses, and I'm not gonna click on responses because it'll show folks, it'll show personal information. But I click on the responses. I export those to a CSV file, or you can export it to Microsoft Excel, whatever you prefer. And I open those up and I review them. For those who qualified, passed the screening form, and weren't disqualified manually, like they have too many people or an aggressive dog or something like that, I'll call or text the people and say, hey, I'm going to be available 2 times, Saturday from 12 to 2 and Monday from 6 to 7. If you can be there at those times, I'll be there. If I set up future dates, you're unable to make these, I'll let you know. And that gives everyone an opportunity to come and view the property. All right, because the next step in our application process is a paper application. So before we jump to that, I want to touch briefly about conversations. Okay, so when an applicant comes in, then I'll introduce myself and say, hey, this is our home. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to talk to you about that. Oh, by the way, when are you looking to move in? And you can see we have a 2-car driveway and there's no off-street parking. Do you only have 2 cars? And where do you currently work, and who's going to be living there? And this is important because the next step, once everybody kind of walks through the property, I hand them a paper application. It's a single-page application, front and back. And I hand them this application here. Let's see. All right. I hand them this application, and I explain to them, if you don't fill it out completely, we're going to discard the application. All right. If I think it's going to be a great applicant, I'll really stress that. But I'm just not, I don't, if you're not honest and if you can't follow instructions, I'm not interested in renting a home to you, because that shows me that I'm going to have some sort of problem because of lack of attention to detail. All right. So paper application, pretty simple. I pre-fill all this out, this top portion. All right. And then just so they know, because people want to know how much is due at lease signing. When I'm ready to sign a lease, how much cash do I need? Because they've got to turn on utilities, electric, water, and gas, internet. There's a lot of costs associated with moving. They need to know how much rent is going to be in that portion of that, all right? And then I kind of have some things I want them to read through. Paying rent on time is a big deal, all right? We'll give you a 5-day grace period, 10% late fee, all right? And I've had some discussion with landlords. Some landlords don't cost that much, but it's painful to me, right? If you're a landlord and you don't get paid, that's painful. And I want it to be painful for people, right? Now, there are times when I've waived that late fee or for certain conditions. But I want people to know there are serious repercussions when you don't pay your rent. All right? Security deposit, I tell everyone face to face, I want to give everyone their deposit back. That's my goal. I feel like if I give everyone their deposit back 100%, then that's my goal every time. So here's how to do that. right? And I talk about a non-refundable cleaning fee. Sometimes I have one, sometimes I can't. And that's something I'm working on right now. Used to, I would charge like, maybe if it's $1,000 rent, I would say $800 security deposit and then $200 non-refundable rent cleaning fee. That's because when people are moving, it's kind of been my experience that they're trying to get their furniture moved, utilities, it's a big deal. I've moved personally, right? So it's easier if they kind of sweep it out, run the vacuum cleaner, wipe down the counters, and then we'll, go over there. We'll have a cleaning service go over and clean the property. They charge us a couple $100, and then we're done, right? And it makes it easy on everyone, ideally, right? But what you lose there is your security deposit. So in the last one I did, I actually cut that cleaning fee out, and I added back the security deposit because I had someone do quite a bit of damage to property that was more than their security deposit. All right. If there's animal rent, and notice the words that I use here, right? Pets are animals, right? If you have a service animal, then that's a different conversation, but it's still an animal. And that's what I want people to understand, is that my houses are made for people. But I expect people to have animals. If you're a person who cares for an animal, who, takes care of it, takes it to the vet, feeds it, takes it outside, then you're probably going to be a good tenant. I think it's a good thing for people to have animals. So that's fine by me. I do charge, and I've had different varying degrees of it. Sometimes I charge a deposit, sometimes I charge a monthly rent. It just what I've settled on recently is I don't charge a pet deposit. I just charge a pet monthly rent, essentially, and that is to cover the costs of the pet. Because for me, if I have carpet, probably going to have to replace that, or I'm going to have it professionally cleaned. That's going to cost me a couple $100. So if they've scratched the wood, that has to be repaired, replaced, painted, so on and so forth. All right. Now, applicant information. This is the person filling it out. How to contact you, right? When you want to move in, big deal. How long you want to live there, want to know. And people don't know. I've had people, I think just about 90% of people say 1 year, and that's fine. Because a lot of times people say, I want to know, if it's a crappy house, I don't want to be here for much longer. Now, we take great care of our homes. We want people to live there for a long time. All right. And then who else is going to be, where do you work? All right. And if you have a co-applicant or more, one or more co-applicants, I need their employer's name, supervisor phone, how long they've been there. And I'm going to call, do an employer verification for the ones that I select. And I'll say, this is Jason with Tomcat Properties. I have someone interested in renting one of my homes. I need to verify they work there. And all they can do is say yes or no. They won't say anything like that, how much they make or whether or not they're great employees, whatever. They're just going to say yes or no. And that's fine. All right. Who's going to be living in the home? All right. Just want to know, if it's one person, that's pretty easy. If you have kids, how many kids? How often will they be there? Do you have shared custody? Do you have a spouse in the military and they're deployed? Like, I want to know all that information right off. Because I've had instances where people will say, it's just me. And then, boyfriend moves in, or they have children that they have every other weekend or something like that. And the reason is, especially for grown-ups, that it's an issue, is that if I have a house close to a school, I do background checks on all the grown-ups. And if boyfriend has to be a sex offender, that's an issue. And then we have to worry about evictions and stuff. So I want to know who's going to be living in the home for safety of my home, safety of the neighborhood, so on and so forth. All right. Where have you lived the previous 5 years? Type of pet or animal do you have? Vehicle information. All right. So let's talk about this. My my single family homes have driveways. I don't want them parking in the yard. It tears up the property, tears up the yard. It costs me a lot of money. It looks bad. The neighbors don't like it. All right. So if I have a 2-car parking driveway and they have 4 cars, it's not going to be a good fit, right? So I do pay attention to that. If they have cars that are not well cared for, that matters. And I pay attention for that, because if they don't care for their car, they're probably not going to care for the house. And that's another thing. When you meet people, you look at what kind of car are they pulling up in. Is their car clean? Is it clean on the inside? Don't be nosy, but hey, if you kind of glance in the windows and you just see garbage everywhere, then that's probably a clear indicator they're going to be dirty tenants, right? And listen, I've got 4 kids. I understand kids are messy. I understand all that. But I also understand there's a time and place for it. Clean up after yourself. If it's an habitual problem, then probably won't be great tenants. All right, so tell me about yourself. All right, so I tell them when I meet them, the next step once you do this is I will, if you're the selected applicant that I think would be a great fit, then I'll have you and everyone over the age of 18 do a background check. All right, so if there are issues with your credit, issues with your background, let me know. People have divorces, people lose jobs, things like that. With background checks, I'm looking for evictions, looking for things like sexual predators, looking for things credit-wise. I'm just paying attention to see if they have a responsible kind of history. All right, so let's just step through. So I collect all these. I have a couple days, and often, it could be 2 days or even 4 days where I have people walk through, and I get as many paper applications that I can, and then I look at them, and I have a list that says, is this the right fit for this home, for the number of people that they have, for the number of animals, right? If you have 1 person and 2 animals, that's fine. But if you have 5 people and 2 animals, it's probably too much for, an 800 square foot 2-bedroom house. Something like that, right? If you work 2 hours away, then you're probably not going to stick there very long, because you're going to get tired of driving back and forth to work. If your kids go to a different school district, that may not be a good fit, right? Do you have verifiable employment history? Do you have credible landlord references? Listen, if I have a tenant moving out and they've told me and they're looking, I would expect that the next place they move to, someone's calling. And I have not received a phone call yet from the next landlord. That shows me maybe folks aren't checking, right? And that's very worrisome. I check. All right. Are there any red flags? As I mentioned, did they say they didn't smoke, but they came up and they were smoking? Or they smoked when they got out of the car? Did they say there would only be 1 person living there, but when they were touring the house, the boyfriend was like, I can't wait to move in. So look for those red flags. Look up, based upon the screening form, the information you have in the screening form, the information you have in their application. Make sure it's consistent and truthful. If it isn't, you gotta throw it away. And let's talk about that one more time. Fill out this application completely or be discarded. Right? If you can't follow that instruction, then if I ask you to pay the rent before the 5th, you probably can't follow that instruction either. This is a simple thing, and if people can't do it, we just toss the application. All right? So then we select the applicant. All right? So we select the applicant. We call their employer, do the verification, and I tell them, I say, we've selected you. As long as your background and credit check come through, we'll have no issues. Is there anything you'd like to tell me now about that? And 100%, I haven't had an issue with that yet. As I mentioned earlier, we're looking for a pattern of responsibility with credit. Background check, we're looking for no evictions, no sexual predators, okay? All right, so they go ahead and do that, and then we, get the lease assigned, so on and so forth. So, just closing remarks, and let me kind of shift back over to my camera. Just kind of closing remarks, and I am looking at some notes, so I have to constantly kind of move those up. All right, take your time. Most times it's going to take me at least 2 weeks to fill vacancy, and I get questions like that when I advertise. How long will it take? Probably 2 weeks, maybe a month, right? This is going to be, and I understand people are, some folks are like, hey, I got cash in hand. I'm ready to go. Well, I understand that, right? And I that's impressive. I like money as probably as much as you do, right? But I also don't want to deal with a bad tenant for the next year. So we really take our time. I would encourage you to do that. 2 weeks, a month, 2 months. Take as much time, because if you can get a great tenant, they will be there for years. They will pay you on time, and it's a marriage. You don't want to marry someone you're going to have to deal with. It's going to give you a constant headache that constantly is going to be texting you, hey, the light bulb's out in my refrigerator, and stuff like that. So, and there's more to it. I'll do another video where I do some onboarding with tenants and I explain to them, this is, work order. These are things that I fix. These are things that you're expected to fix. All right. And finally, stick to your process. My process isn't perfect. With the hand application, I wrote that, and it's far from perfect. And but whatever your process is, do it with every tenant. Stick with it. Take your time. Get the great tenant. All right. So comment below about this. If you have questions or thoughts, concerns. I really want this to be a conversation. It's definitely not perfect. We continue to improve our processes over time. Thank you. I'm Jason with Tomcat Properties. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.